At just 28 years old, Zach Skow was given 90 days to live. His addiction left him with end stage liver disease. 12 years later, he's now the co founder of an animal rescue, Marley's Mutts, and also a pretty revolutionary prison program. It pairs California inmates with rescue dogs. By the way, he also just welcomed his second baby girl. It's really the ultimate tale of perseverance. In fact, Zach credits his dogs with being the medicine that saved him. This is Zach Skow's Rebound. How are you here today?
Oh boy, that's a good question. The simple answer as to why I'm still here today is my dogs, is that I found a God of my understanding and dogs that understand me. After getting diagnosed with end-stage liver disease, they give you an ultimatum. It's you need a liver transplant or you're not going to make it. And I wasn't going to qualify for a liver transplant. You need 6 months of sobriety for a liver transplant, and I didn't have 6 hours sobriety, much less 6 months. So it was a very, very, very dark time. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital trying to find a transplant program that would accept me, that would hopefully save my life. And what ended up doing it is after 6 weeks, my dad broke me out of the hospital, literally signed me out against doctor's orders because I was dying there. And they wanted to send me home on hospice care. And we got admitted to Cedars-Sinai Comprehensive Transplant Center through Cedars-Sinai Emergency Room. So it was just a way for us to kind of trick the system and get admitted, get seen by transplant doctors. And they admitted me to the program that day, took me off most of my medication, sent me home and said, this is very dangerous. You may not make it through this, but if you stay near a hospital, you stay sober, you might survive. And that's what we did, is just got home and set to trying to survive. And the first real impediment to that was suicide. I had not been without alcohol or drugs for most of my adult life. I've been drinking every day since I was 17, drinking and using drugs. And at the time I was 28 and I just couldn't live. I didn't know how to be present. I didn't know how to address life on life's terms. And my dogs were there to be my saving grace. They were there to pull me outside of the prison of my own mind and have me focus on them instead of myself. And by rehabilitating the dogs, I was able to rehabilitate myself. And by the time I qualified for my transplant, when I finally got 6 months of sobriety, I no longer needed a liver transplant.
That's remarkable. I want to step back for a second. If you ever want to see someone with superhuman strength and capabilities, tell a parent your child's about to die and watch them pull everything that they can. I love the story of your dad. He is an aeronautical engineer by trade. And you said,
Yeah.
He looked at this like a math problem. What do you mean?
I am so happy you brought that up because it's something that often gets overlooked in my stories. We focus on the dogs and how the dogs helped save me, which is exactly what they did. They gave me something to focus on, something that I felt purposeful. I was able to get out of the prison of my own mind and my own heart and into rescuing them. But none of that would have ever been possible if it weren't for my dad, who, like you said, he just refused to believe that I wasn't going to live. And I'll never forget the first meeting we had with a gastroenterologist when I had been admitted for long-term care. It was Dr. Aziz, and Dr. Aziz came in and said, your son needs liver transplant and he's not going to get one. So he right off the bat said, you're not going to get a transplant. You ought to consider hospice, and you ought to really come to grips with the fact that your son's not going to live. He just refused to hear that. And I give my dad the most credit because it was just us. At that time, there was nobody else involved. A lot of my friends, family just weren't involved. There was it was a scary, dangerous, lonely time. And my dad just never quit. He never gave up and refused. He just refused to believe that I wasn't going to make it. And I never believed I was going to make it. You know what I mean? A lot of people tend to look at whenever you've bounced back from something potentially detrimental or life, ending. And I wasn't this graceful, strong human being. I relied on my dad and my dogs for that. And through that process, I ended up with some strength and some self-esteem, but I was a wreck of a human being this entire process. I relied completely on my dad and on my dogs to help me come back from this.
How do you explain to someone who doesn't understand that connection of how
Yeah.
transformative it was to have those dogs?
This is gonna get emotional, but it's so critical. So people ought not get hard on themselves for not having that bond necessarily. Our bond was really forged through the worst of the worst kind of situations. So I think we have such a tough bond because they resurrected my life. I reached such a low rock bottom that I didn't know how to get up out of it. I didn't feel love for myself. I felt only hate for myself, and not only hate, but like extreme, disrespect. Like my own ego was flat out disrespectful to myself. And one of the only things that really helped me get some of that esteem back was my dogs. I was able to put all my effort, instead of hyper focusing on my illness, how I couldn't have drugs or alcohol anymore, how I wasn't going to survive, or all these negative things, all my focus went into caring for my dogs. And in that process, I would receive these waves of unconditional love, and these moments when you're flirting with suicidal thoughts and that you can sit down and plug into your animals and register with them. And then that feeling will go away. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I sat on my bed with my dogs thinking about how I needed to end my life and how I didn't know how to do it. And I only had this one bit of will left, or goodwill, that I could give my family, which was to take my own life. I've been such a burden to my family for so long, and I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to die, and I was completely lost, and my dogs really built me up. They started to give me that love and that recognition and that purpose. I felt like I had a reason to be here, and I didn't feel like I had a reason to be here prior to them. So, I mean, it was really, I get emotional because I remember those moments.
Yeah.
I remember thinking such hateful thoughts about myself, such detrimental, hateful thoughts. And then I remember plugging into Buddy and Tug and Marley and just feeling this wave of acceptance and this wave of approval and this wave of finally catching a breath, finally being able to breathe and kind of settle into myself and say, okay, what's real and what's not real? What up here is false and fake and untrue, and what energy from them is real and true and godlike. And there is, it's people always say, God is dogs spelled backward. And I find it very trite that people always focus on that, but it's incredibly true. There's a lot of God in dogs, and there is something that happens when two beings connect over rehabilitation, where you're both scared, you're both lost, you're both worried, but you have each other, and you know that with support from one another, you can make it through. And luckily in those early days, I had that all the time. There was always a new dog coming in who I would connect with and build up and boost. And as long as I was there to be for them, I had a reason to be here on this planet. And it really helped me get through an extremely dark time that I wasn't sure I was going to get through. I mean, yeah.
No, I think you are the ultimate rebound story in so many ways. But you talk about how your dogs were medicine for you when medicine didn't really work for you in many cases.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I haven't thought about the realism of that statement, but it's 100% true. I was given certain medicines that were killing me. I was taking horrific medicines to prevent ammonia buildup on my brain, like Enulose and Lactulose, and really tough medicines. I mean, I got addicted to Dilaudid and morphine in the hospital, and all of these things were combining to make me sicker. And the only medicine that helped me with what I truly needed was my dogs. I mean, animals in general are medicine, not only because they hold up a mirror, but because they infuse us with a particular type of acceptance and love that is very hard to access in the real world. There is a pure and unconditional acceptance that you can get from your animals, that if you're willing to pay attention to it, if you're willing to acknowledge it and give it the credit that it's due, it will fundamentally change your life.
What's your advice? You made it out to create this incredible life for yourself and a family for yourself. How'd you do it? What's your advice to people who might be watching that find themselves in that dark place?
For me, the honest truth is what has been able to save me through the toughest times is having people I can go to and connect with when I'm feeling vulnerable, when I'm feeling lost, when I'm feeling angry, tired, upset, lonely. I have a really great group of people I can unload on. You don't have to be this crazily empowered, inspired human being to get through some of the worst moments in your life. You just have to believe in yourself a little bit, and a lot of the rest of it will come together. And honestly, for me, is just one thing that really helps is just being vulnerable, is talking about how I feel. People can't be there to help you if you don't let them know how you feel. And I think that's one thing that's really served me, is that when I'm in pain or I'm hurting or I've had dark thoughts, even suicidal thought. I had a suicidal thought before my daughter was born. I hadn't had a suicidal thought since I was newly sober. And that scared me to death. I couldn't believe I was having that dark of a thought with a baby on the way. And I got really ashamed and really hard on myself and really into my own negativity. And then I just, took a step back and realized, I made a few calls and let people know how I was feeling, and was able to really exercise that and come away with a better understanding and better tools to process my low points.
It sounds like you're not afraid to ask for help when you need it.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I've learned that bottling things up and keeping things in is what feeds your illness. It's what feeds my mental illness. So if I can talk about things, if I can let some things out and open them up, even if they're kind of embarrassing, it's okay. If it's the difference between living and dying, I'm going to open up.
Part of your incredible story is just recently you welcomed a second baby girl into your beautiful home. Talk about love. I mean, how do we go from the story of being an addict to now creating this incredible family and life? Tell me about your family, Zach.
I even just hearing you say it, I never thought I would make it to 30. I never in a million years, the things I've seen and been through, and I just never, ever, ever thought I would make it to 30 years old. And I just turned 41, and I have the girl of my dreams. My wife is the absolute person for me, and I found her because of rescue and because of this work. We welcomed our first daughter, Shiloh, 2.5 years ago, and then we just welcomed her sister. Her mom, my wife, delivered our most recent baby in the car, and people are always saying, "Oh, you delivered your..." No, I drove. I was driving. My wife said, "I'm giving birth." She then gave birth by herself in the passenger seat. By the time we got to the hospital, baby's in her arms, just handled it. And I'm thinking, okay, I now lose every argument for the duration of our marriage. Like how am I supposed to? Yeah, I got canceled out completely. Any of my previous heroics that have taken place, like the story we're talking about now, out the window. She delivered our child. I still have a really hard time understanding all of the blessings that are around me. It still feels like I'm gonna, I brush it away because it's a dream. Like I'm gonna close my eyes and wake up and it won't be there. It feels like that regularly.
But Zach, you say life is about small steps. You don't get from point A to point B overnight. How did you persevere and ultimately rebound?
People aren't going to want to hear this, but it didn't really have a lot to do with me. It had to do with people believing in me. So I still doubt myself to a degree that's probably unhealthy. But I think part of that is being humble, and part of that is just having had a hard time with myself over life. But really, what it was is people have believed in me for the last 12 years. The real miracle here has been, what other human beings are capable of doing by uplifting others. When you see somebody who's hurting, when you see somebody who's down, you can fundamentally change their trajectory. You can change where they are emotionally through your own love and through your own outreach. So, reach out and give them a little boost. You'll be surprised to see where that might take them. One of the things that has really, really helped me get through all of the tough times, all of the good times, is I have dogs around me all the time that are plugged into the moment. So my brain wants to be focused on the future and the past, and in which case I'm really not addressing my present. But I have all these reminders around me to check into the present, to try to clue into the present moment, to be rooted in this, to breathe into this. And that's been really, really helpful because, I had to concede a long time ago that my best thinking puts me in really bad situations often. I have to concede that. So, I have to rely on other people, a God of my understanding, and like I said, dogs that understand me. And with that, I'll be just fine.
What is it ultimately you want to be remembered for?
I guess really in the end, what I would absolutely love to be known for is somebody who created more access to hope for more people and pets. That is really my goal. Is I've been granted this incredible life that I don't deserve, that came out of the ashes and utter destitution. And because other people believed in me and sacrificed for me, I was given a second chance. And I feel like countless millions of other people are in the same spot looking for a way out, and they deserve a hand up. They deserve some help. And that's what we're trying to do, is just create access to hope for as many people and pets as possible.